This is pretty exciting for me. Last year, got up and had a chance to talk and say some crazy things, and that was a lot of fun. This year, I get to get up and say some crazy things and do it with a friend of mine.
I have to pretend to agree.
No. The best friendships in the world have ideas that bounce off each other, and I think we have a few for you. So I'm Erik Peterson. I'm the CTO and founder of CloudZero.
Yeah, and I'm Rick LaFaver, director of Cloud FinOps at DraftKings.
And you know what? I don't have a clicker. How am I going to change the slides? The magic.
I will give you this clicker for $5, and I can charge it to your room.
I know there was a million things that I was like.
I think we're good with just the one slide, huh?
Hold on. I'm gonna ask. I know. How many years have I done this? Oh, fantastic. I'm trying to ask Claude Fable to take care of it for me now. All right. All right. So, hey, we're going to talk about a little bit about the future. It may get a little uncomfortable in here, but actually, at the end of this, I'm pretty certain we're all going to be pretty excited. So, let's get started. Okay, congratulations. The world is over. It's it. We had a good run. It was exciting. Now we're going to be destroyed by a meteorite filled with dollar bills that we're going to spend literally the entire financial output of the human race on so that the AI can take over. I'm hoping that I can put my feet up on the beach somewhere and relax. I, for one, welcome our new AI overlords, but how many people feel just a little bit terrified about what's going on?
Oh, less than I expected.
Oh, that's good. All right.
How many of you have heard AI enough times for a lifetime this week already? Okay.
Right. Well, get ready for more. Okay. This is not the reality necessarily that we all have to live for. We have to evolve our way through this, but it is pretty clear if you read, see, hear anything that there's a giant meteorite filled with dollar bills called AI hitting the planet right now, and Fable's out from Anthropic just maybe a few hours ago.
Baby mythos?
My system is, cranking on stuff right now, spending dollars. I will probably spend $100 while I'm standing on this stage. We'll see. Last year, I used to say this a lot as well. Anybody who's heard me say this a few times knows that I feel very passionate about that every engineering decision is a buying decision. The only challenge with this statement is it's now out of date. We are entering into a world where every decision is a buying decision. The thought itself has we've entered a reality where thought itself is actually being monetized. Every decision is a buying decision. I don't Google for things. I go onto Perplexity and search for something. I don't create stuff. I ask Claude to do some coding for me. I want to create a document, maybe ChatGPT, or I need an image of a meteorite striking the planet, spitting dollars. I ask AI. And all of those decisions are buying decisions. They cost money. And that is why we are in this situation together. We are spending money on literally everything that we do. And that makes our roles together, all of us here in this room, what we do, 1,000,000 times more important. Because that is going to eclipse everything that we've worked on beforehand. It's going to eclipse cloud. It's not that cloud is going to go away, but it's going to change everything about how we build, how we deploy, how we run, how we operate systems. It's all going to be driven by token consumption or AI building things for us, and that world is going to be very different than what we see today. And every decision in that world is going to be a buying decision. And we have people encouraging all of you out there to make a lot of buying decisions. Certainly seen a few quotes today in JR's keynote from this fine gentleman here who's serves to win a lot in this AI economy, but he's also encouraging all of us to go spend a lot along the way, and that is driving spend in a way that we perhaps didn't think too much about last year. This time last year, we may not have been thinking about the cost to build as much as we think about the cost to serve. But now these things are very visible. And in conversations with CFOs and CIOs and other leaders in organizations, I'm starting to see something interesting emerge, this conversation about humans versus tokens. So let's think really hard about where we spend our money and the buying decisions we make, and the timeline for how all this is playing out is moving way faster than I think anyone here expects. Now, there's a couple of different lines on here because, Rick, you shared this with me earlier. The future is never evenly distributed, right?
Yeah, that was kind of what we kind of talked about with this, is that everyone sees this graph as it's like 3 possible outcomes for reality. But in reality, all 3 of these are happening right now. There's heavily regulated industries that are mandated to have a cautious path in AI adoptions. There's businesses where their primary output is not technological delivery, it's physical products, in which case the AI isn't integrated in your factory systems yet, but you're still using AI to streamline some of the processes. Then you have full tech stack with minimal, or startup or things like that that might be following this orange line. There's also probably some people that are gonna be even more aggressive than this, that are gonna fizzle out in the situation where they're burning more tokens than they have runway to even operate with.
Yeah. We're going to live all 3 of these timelines simultaneously. Some people are already there. But if you have to, if you see what has happened so far, we ended 2025 in a world where pretty much all the code could be written by AI. And that exploded in the past couple months in the form of enormous AI bills. Well, if I can write all the code with AI, I can deploy all the code with AI, and if I can deploy all the code with AI, I can manage and maintain and monitor all the code with AI. And at that point, what does the cloud even mean anymore if I'm not even talking to it, but AI is doing the work? That changes the equation in a huge way. And for all of us who maybe have used to staring at the cloud bill or staring at the infrastructure that our engineering teams are building, well, we might not be staring at it. In fact, we might be staring at a number that's very hard to understand. You spent $1 million on 10 million tokens. What the hell is a token? Many of us have tried to explain it. Sure, we all understand the technical terms, but really, what value did I get out of that? And I said last year that AI is probably not coming for your job, but somebody using AI is definitely coming for your job. And I'm sorry to tell you, I was wrong. AI is, in fact, coming for our jobs. It is. But it's a promotion, if we see it as one, if we embrace it. The things that we do today are not going to be the things that we do tomorrow. If it's toil, if it's work, if it's something that can be automated, it will be automated by AI. We are going to have those AI employees working for us.
And one of the things that really stuck with me from the keynote this morning is how they I forgot who it was that ended with being open. You're going to have to navigate your way through the value of where you align yourself with the value that your company needs from you as you kind of carry forward through this journey. So things are going to get automated that used to be like part of your core job responsibility. You've got to continue to stay at that leading edge of the wave and be adaptable and be open to know what's needed of you by your companies.
Yeah. I think we're all living in this right now where none of us would really want to do our job without AI. Next year, we're going to really be wondering what the hell is our job. And if we're embracing the work versus the outcome, we're going to have a very difficult time with that. But if you embrace the outcome, you're getting a promotion. We're all getting a promotion. And I think that's very exciting, but we don't have a choice. That's perhaps the terrifying piece of this. So that means that we have to shift our way of thinking. And the FinOps Foundation has already started to do this shift. I spent a lot of time thinking about this, participating in the conversations with my fellow governing board members, and I remember the debate that we had talking about just removing the word cloud from the definition. And it was a fun conversation. But it feels like that conversation was a million years ago. Because now we are in a situation where we have to think of something completely different. In fact, these slides, some of this thinking was put together even before JR's announcement today about tokenomics. And you can already see the FinOps Foundation embracing this. I'm excited by it. Where it goes, I'm not quite certain, but I'm excited by it because that is the coming challenge. It's not just the framework that was built for us humans, but a completely different way of thinking that we have to embrace.
Well, I think that's one of the things that's going to be one of the biggest areas we have to adapt is right now we're managing mostly the behavior of humans using an AI. as opposed to what we're going to be managing in the future is going to be agentic, autonomous workflows using AI and AI using AI. So, I mean, it's going to be a whole new ballgame coming forward.
It's an entirely new ballgame. And there is one question that is going to rise above all of that. That is what we're going to spend most of today talking about, which is how do we move beyond this world of what we spend and what does it cost to, is it worth it? What is the value that we get out of all of this? And we started talking about that last year, but we didn't really get into it. That value is really the only thing that matters. The outcome is really the only thing that matters. Don't fall in love with the work. Fall in love with the output, the outcome, the value. Is it worth it? All of us are on the front lines of this. We have a front row seat to that intersection of technology and business. And I want to double down on what I heard JR say earlier during the keynote, that we are collectively as a community in the best position to see this grow for good or to be unbelievably disruptive to our businesses if we don't embrace it. So talking about the value is perhaps the most important thing that we can do. And with that, I want Rick to describe exactly how they've gotten there at DraftKings.
So I'm not going to bury the lead. The main piece that I want to talk to you about today is the concept of a value realization engine. Now, the idea of an engine would be that, am I going the right way? The idea of a value realization engine would be that we have a series of inputs and a series of outputs throughout our FinOps organizations. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to capture the cost from our cloud, from AI, from other variable spend SaaS providers. We're collecting our unit economics through our different revenue proxies, our different workonomics through how many jobs, how many queries, things like that. But all of these need to be mapped in the end to something that aligns with business value. And what we're trying to do is create, essentially, I mean, you've seen some of the autonomous FinOps that people are starting to talk about. This is sort of the capability map, and I will have a great visual for you to snap a picture of kind of what this capability map looks like and what we're building towards at DraftKings with that. But this has kind of been the adaptations that we've started to do as the world's changing and as these things are starting to move a lot quicker.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember that what we're talking about here, what DraftKings has been building, what all of us I think can get at is a system where every dollar of every spend, it's intentionally deployed, continuously evaluated, tied to clear outcomes. Why is that word system so important? These AI systems are going to be moving faster than us humans can keep up with. But we can describe what we want. We can describe what the business needs. We can describe the value that we're shooting for. And if we build a system, we can stay ahead of it. We can surf the wave.
So the key areas that I think that we need to adapt as FinOps capability, and some of you may already be moving this direction, is we really need to get away from managing cost to really being aware of value realization. So when cost goes up, that might be a good thing, that might be a bad thing. We only know how much that matters to us based on how our revenue proxies or whatever the unit economics that we've decided on move in coordination. So like if we see an increase in cost and it's eroding our unit economics, we know that increase in cost was detrimental to our business as opposed to supporting some revenue stream. Or potentially there's a deeper ROI story that you can work with your product teams to understand. The second piece is around expanding the scope of FinOps. And a lot of us have already gotten into this, but I mean, we're talking breadth here. As I said earlier, really anything that has a variable spend like OpEx number is something that could potentially be ingested into our FinOps processes to where we could align the variable spend with the variable outcomes within our business. Also being conscientious of what is supporting our cost of goods sold, what's supporting building the products we're bringing to market versus what's supporting more of back office type activities. If you're a publicly traded company, people aren't wanting to see your fixed cost base growing at a faster rate than the cost it takes to serve your customers. The other piece is, to Erik's point earlier, the human decision is going to be one of the slowest things that we're going to have in our technical processes. So building automated remediation around smarter data. So that means being able to quickly query data to get to the bottom of troubleshooting or triage. That also means eventually, after back testing data, being able to make automated decisions based on that data using some of the solutions that already exist, and many of the solutions are becoming in the market in the coming days, months, years, hours, I don't know.
Why we're up here talking.
Yeah. So as we kind of drill into this a little bit around unit economics, sometimes it's very easy. I could take all your cloud bills down to zero. I just unplug the stuff and turn everything off. But that's not our goal as FinOps. We're trying to show ROI within our technical spend. So building more and more sophisticated unit economics that are going to allow us to really drill down and know exactly the areas of our business that are eroding our profitability, that are eroding the bottom line that your business cares about, the bottom line that your shareholders and stakeholders care about. That's going to be what we need to build in our unit economics. I see some people that go only as deep as like workonomics, where we're like, okay, it costs me X amount of dollars to run this job. But how does that job then correlate to what your business's core competency is? How does that job correlate to where your business is making its money? What drives your share price, or what drives your valuation as a company?
We have to lean into what is important to the businesses, the companies, the worlds that we work in, and understand that value. Because if you're driving growth or you're driving expansion, that is driving value. The world of FinOps, saving money, cutting costs, shaving a few dollars off the cloud bill, that world is dying and will be completely automated. So there's a way more important role for all of us to play in that.
At DraftKings, we've already kind of started to do this. That was actually done before I got there. Unit economics is one of the most sophisticated things we've done at DraftKings, but we've continued to evolve it to now having unit economics for our observability tools, unit economics for our data layer, and really working through the hard problems on how to answer these questions. The challenge is how do we do all of this without reducing velocity, increasing toil, building heavy oversight? Because it's not our job to get in the way of the business, it's our job to facilitate them having better outcomes. The next piece is falling in love with your tech stack. So you're gonna have a lot of applications. Some of you are gonna have dedicated procurement teams, dedicated vendor management capabilities. Sometimes that might be you, sometimes that might be you adjacent or you plus somebody else. But it's important to understand that the fastest growing portions of our tech spend aren't really cloud anymore. I mean, unless you're, I guess, just now for whatever reason doing a to cloud shift. But if you've been in cloud, everything probably is stabilized, or you realized a lot of the low-hanging fruit with optimizations. So now the stuff that's growing is our AI spend, it's our tooling spend, it's observability. Maybe you're building a huge data layer to support, Claude being able to go and make queries against your giant data layer. All of those costs are going to be increasing while everything else is staying normal. So we need to take that same discipline that we learned on right-sizing EC2 instances and whatever, and point that at some of the other areas in our business that have that equal opportunity to be optimized relative to what the business desires out of them. So with that, it's really around just getting back to business fundamentals, define expected value from our vendors, build unit economics that tie them to outcomes, and then the tools just basically have to pass the test. So if it's growing at a faster rate than your revenue and it's not supporting your revenue generation, or if you just spent $5 million more in observability, but your MTTR hasn't changed at all, you might have something wrong in your math.
I think that's a good takeaway, because I speak with a few FinOps folks out there who are focused very clearly on the costs, but don't have access to the revenue data. If you don't have access to the revenue data, if you don't see the other side of the equation right now, you can't actually pursue this value engine, realization engine, and you need to, as an action, go back home and demand it, because that is what is going to help you understand if what you're building, what you're guiding your business to do, your engineers to do, is generating profit, value.
Well, and that transitions into the idea around smarter data. So if we're trying to build smarter data, we need to have all those data points that are critical to outcomes so that we can correlate everything with the outcomes. Be that revenue or whatever makes your business tick. I'm just using revenue generally because I guess that makes most companies drive, but the stock market's a crazy thing these days. So at this point, we know all the optimizations we need to do. CloudZero has a bunch of stuff. AWS has presented a bunch of cost optimization opportunities. Cloud cost optimization can be a solved problem. However, right now what we're losing on is speed as opposed to identifying more opportunities. And some of this is going to be stuff that's able to be solved with agentic automation. So if we know there's 1,000 changes that need to be made that are going to save $25 each, that used to be a non-starter. With agentic, as long as we can find a clear path with reasonable levels of risk, that's now a relatively easy thing to solve. Just go inject a bunch of PRs. Same thing with developing a golden path. The idea of this, so we were all kind of familiar with the idea of like golden image and golden AMI and all those kinds of things. The idea of like a golden path is your governance is going to create the right path becomes the easiest path to travel down. So in the past, we've governed through InfoSec and through other things to where we're like shutting off different pathways. I think in FinOps, we kind of know the direction that we want to go with the business, and we want to know how we want to guide them. So the same as InfoSec has really involved themselves in like application onboarding, we should have some seat at that table to be able to present some financial guardrails, the ability to collect the right data to make the right kinds of decisions. The other piece is having an AI-driven practice. So build optimization practice that can keep up with the increased speed of delivery facilitated by AI. I've had a couple of people ask me about like, do I have human approval for projects as they go in, or am I signing off on things? I think if we're still trying to do that and the speed that things are going to be working, you're just going to end up like an old 1960s movie with a stack of paper on your desk. And I don't think that's really the role that we're supposed to be playing in this whole journey. So the concept kind of becomes the organizations that win aren't the ones that optimize, it's the ones that no longer have to.
Yeah. I think as exciting as, I'm going to go optimize things, it sounds so productive and positive. The reality is that is a reactive activity. You are reacting to a mistake that was made. And we have the opportunity to create entirely different systems or think entirely different about how we run a FinOps practice to get ahead of that so that optimization is not something you need to do anymore.
So I've kind of explained some of these changes, and I could go much, much more in depth, but I'm going to touch on kind of 3 concepts that I think are just some things that we need to start thinking as we approach the changing landscape that we're operating in and how we can actually take advantage of that. The first is AI value realization. I get asked all the time, how are you guys managing AI costs? And Kevin out here from my team has helped me build this, and the whole team's really been involved. But if I spend $100 million on tokens and I'm making $500 million, I should be getting pats on the back. Nobody should care. But if I can't prove that that AI spend has attributed to that $500 million, it just looks like erosion on our bottom line. So it's critical that we start to capture the metadata and the information and start to collate those through either commercial options that are out there on the market or building our own solutions here to be able to take the AI spend and attribute it to what the value is.
Or are we just creating expensive bananas?
I did have Gemini draw its own self-portrait. That probably was a waste of AI tokens. So I think the piece here is that you kind of get into the start, stop, continue. We've seen like companies like Amazon, companies like Facebook, companies like Google that are very aggressive with this, is that they'll launch a product, and if it's not doing what they say it's going to do with the writing on the label, the business case, they'll shut it down after a while. They'll let it try to cook. So we kind of need to start having at least the data to inform our leadership teams to force a decision. Do we scale it, do we fix it, or do we kill it? The next piece is task mining around cost patterns. Some of this sounds like old school automation, but I'm trying not to think about it that way. What I've seen is that a lot of people are taking way too much time to answer out of left field queries, or taking way too much time to like dig through deep data to produce the output, or working on executive monthly, quarterly, weekly, daily decks and things like that. So at DraftKings, we've actually started to build some agentic workflows to automate what essentially is a business analyst on our team. We're providing them with the cost context, the context of the data that we're supporting. We're building the capability to understand the business context. So like, is a spike relative to like a big sporting event, or is it an anomaly? And also having the ability to build slideware in a way that we can support more granular type activities. So for instance, our delivery team is going to start working within the agile process to present just like a little one slider of 3 items that their teams can work on side of desk while they're delivering that week's sprint. So really it empowers us to make do a lot more things at a lot more granular level. And as you automate those processes and start to learn that thing, let's say that we send the same optimization through to an agile coach 9 times in a row and it's always a valid alert. Great, I found something that I can now fully automate, and anytime I detect that pattern, I can just go ahead and remediate it via that same AI that detected it.
Yeah, you're mining those patterns, you're turning them into skills, you're sharing them, they're becoming part of the system. It's not just a point in time discovery, but something that kind of fits into the agentic system that you're flowing, and there's so much data coming into it. The way you've wired everything together, well, we'll get to that in a second. It's pretty cool.
So the other piece around this is I saw this session earlier today in room A where around running FinOps with a small team. I know a lot of us have small bootstrap teams. I think what's critical in this is being ruthless with our prioritization framework. That's part of this task mining. What can we do that's high value, relatively low effort, and manageable complexity? So I always use examples like, okay, if I can do something where I can spend 1 day to spend $100, in 7 days I've saved $700 for the business. But if it takes me 7 days to save $700, I've now wasted all that resource to deliver the exact same amount of savings by just delaying the execution of it. So time is the value here. The other piece is working around manageable complexity. So if there's a cultural change or something that's going to take a heavy lift to deliver, that just gets bumped down further down the prioritization stack. That doesn't mean you never get to it. It means you get to it once all the easier stuff is done. But this is kind of a good way where we found what we can do and how we prioritize. We have quarterly prioritization sessions where we go through and decide exactly what is the highest value, low effort, manageable complexity things that we can do in the next quarter. So again, just kind of figuring out ways to make it easier to do the right thing than doing the wrong thing. Final piece is rethinking build versus buy. And when I wrote this slide, I had like a deep philosophical like concept around this, but it's pretty simple. Is something in the critical path? You probably need to have a vendor that you can choke when something breaks. So like if my cost observability tool goes down on Tuesday night at 2 a.m., I'm gonna call Erik and make it his problem and not be my team's problem. And I'm not gonna build the whole CloudZero equivalent inside of DraftKings to do cost observability. Each of our businesses has differentiators. We have core competencies. We have the things that make our business. And those are the things that we should probably be spending our time and effort on, as opposed to the things that are critical path solutions. Now, on the other side of that coin, you have non-critical path solutions. You have things that they're going to go down on a Tuesday and nobody's going to care. Vibe code away. So the build versus buy becomes a lot more of a, instead of a facilitator of speed versus control, it becomes support and aligning with core competencies of your business, as opposed to just like vanity projects and stuff like that. It's also critical that we start being a little more dynamic about understanding, is this thing that we're building actually supporting the direction that our business wants us to go? So FinOps needs a lot of tools to do its job. That's great. But there might be some areas where without really writing a charter around what exactly you're trying to solve, where you'll get scope creep to where you build something that doesn't even necessarily align just because you got stuck in some AI rabbit hole and went all the way down.
Yeah, and I think this is an area where we probably could have an entire conversation about just the build versus buy. Like we've had this conversation for a long time in the FinOps community, and if anybody knows me, if they ask me, well, what's your point of view on build versus buy, Erik, as a creator of a product in the space? Well, my position should be obvious. You should build. I mean, I built one. I was excited about it. Go forward, build it. And if you want to know how to build it, I will explain it to you in great detail. We'll sit down, prepare to drink heavily, because it's not an easy thing to do. But I find myself looking at the tooling, the AI capabilities that we have today, and asking myself one question over and over again. What currently in this new world that we are living in is hard? What's hard? I can ask the system, Claude, whatever, to create anything that I want it to create. Just because I can do that doesn't mean I should, though. Now more than ever, we have to double down on focus, on what is important for our business, what is important for the work that we're doing, because just because I can build something in 5 minutes doesn't mean everybody else can't build something in 5 minutes.
Well, and Claude's not going to pick up the phone when it breaks.
And Claude is definitely not going to pick up the phone when it breaks. But you have to seriously think hard about that, because our timelines are being compressed. So that 5 minutes I spend building this thing and that thing and this thing and that thing and this thing, next thing I know, I've done 1,000 things today and I'm not going to be able to keep up with it. So now more than ever, when we have basically this fount of infinite possibility, focus and prioritization, ruthless prioritization, is even more important. And I like what you said about this, Rick, when we were talking about this, like the role of your organization is to give everyone this the car window sticker, right? The way to think about here's the total value. How many people have had their CEO ask them, like, hey, do we need to go still buy this CRM thing? Can't you just go vibe code that for me, please? And I've seen those projects literally take off, get built. Somebody goes, oh, that looks cool. But they've spent $100,000 in tokens building that thing that would have been a $9.99 a month per user license, right?
So to give you like an actual real world example, so in the AI value realization process we were talking about, we went to market with it last year and talked to every vendor out on the street. Nobody really had something that could incorporate all of like the productivity data from Jira and Bitbucket and everything, along with all of our AI token usage and all this stuff. So we ended up working with partnering internally and vibe coding an app. It was well beyond vibe coded, but it was a significant thing. We've recently started taking that piece into production. Now, productionizing a vibe coded app, that becomes an entirely different thing. And just running something on your local machine, fine to solve simple solutions. But if you need a distributed solution that's resilient and durable, has an architecture diagram, or has the documented architecture, you know, it's version controlled, supported, everyone's gonna try to put their enhancement in that. That's not something that's like trivial. So like we've hired people to support our AI value realization track. But that's what it comes down to. Is that something that's gonna differentiate our business? Is that one of like the top problems that we're trying to solve as a business? Yeah, so we're gonna do that. But if we weren't, we would have just made a headache for some engineers.
Yeah.
Now, this is the diagram that everybody's gonna take a picture of. This is the value realization engine to the best that we can kind of document it right now. So I have a much more extensive capability map that I'm working towards for our concept of a value realization engine, but this is a great place to get you started. So at the top you see kind of your signal, right? So you have costs, you have your AI costs, GPU costs if you're running your own LLM locally. You have your variable cost SaaS, so all the different areas that are eroding your OpEx spend. I mean, FinOps really emerged because we switched from CapEx to OpEx, so just be cognizant of that. Then you have all your different FinOps signals, so your budgets, your revenue proxies, whatever your workonomics and unit economics are. So in our case, we're looking at bets at DraftKings, but you know, everybody's got their own different business situation. We then go down from a layer to that to really start maturing those unit economics. And I like to think of this value realization process kind of in the same way that FinOps is laid out, where we're basically observing, we're optimizing, then we're operating, then we start back around and we go back to the beginning to improve on everything. So then after we get to the unit economics, now we have all the real problems to start identifying and start providing these valuable pieces of intelligence to our leadership team. So understanding cost of value, understanding how these affect margins, understanding if there's any complexity that we need to do to understand decisions that we would make via automation or decisions we're going to assist via automation, understanding patterns and anti-patterns, building out scenario modeling, so getting really sophisticated forecasting and having models that feed into that and understanding what all the different moving parts are and building a good forecast, building in the policies and guardrails. So while you're going to have these emerging agentic optimization streams, you still have your typical old school cloud custodian and all your different policies you're running on your platforms.
There's a lot of moving parts here, but this notion of the unit economics layer is more critical now, more so than ever. Think about it. In some ways, the costs that we're being asked to reconcile have moved backwards in time to what feels like maybe 100 years. Today, we all get a bill that we may not think much about because it's so worthless when we get it in the mail, but it says, I spent $500 on 1,000 kilowatts of power. 1,000 kilowatts of power doing what? Running the microwave, running the heater? Did I leave the lights on all night long? The value is completely missing from this. And now we find ourselves getting the exact same thing, and the trend suggests that we're going to move even more so in that direction to just get a bill that says you spent $1 million on 10 million tokens or whatever the going rate will be. If we can't apply the principles of unit economics to that, we will never understand what we're getting from that. And more importantly, we'll never get to these other elements of this engine. At CloudZero, we think of this broadly as a financial control plane that is designed to give you this insight in terms of what it is that you do, your business. What does it cost to do the things that you do? What are the features, the services, the products, the transactions, the things that drive that? And if you don't put everything in terms that the business can understand, all these other components don't work. The conversations that Rick is having with his leadership don't work because you can't go in there and just talk about Kubernetes.
Well, and that's where you can see on the bottom layer, it's all around outcomes, actions, and leverage. Because at the end of the day, you can do everything right in this, but if you don't get to the so what answer, so like, great, we're doing all this, I have all these dashboards, whatever, the key decision makers need to be informed with I see all this, so what? Now what do I do with that information? So that's why the bottom layer here is also critically important to get that aligned to where we know the so what of all this. Then we can start iterating on it, getting more mature, taking on whatever the next challenge is after AI is this thing.
Yeah.
And then we can keep going.
Yeah. The window is closing. Well, I mean, first, Rick, I want to say thank you for letting us build that engine, actually. If we go back and just take a peek at it, this is what we've built together. This is a system that is a living, breathing thing, evolving, new inputs every single day. And I honestly just want to say thank you. Thank you for sharing the stage with me and talking about this and getting into the details here, because this is, well, exciting. It's exciting to see how this is evolving and how we can apply different parts of our platform, but also technology that you're building, your team is building, how you're integrating all of this. And most importantly, we just understand the outcome is the most important aspect of all of this.
Well, you guys have been great partners. I appreciate it.
Well, the feeling is mutual. Let's just hug it out. But the window is closing. And what do we mean by that? Well, there is this ominous feel that if we don't evolve, this thing might just run us over. And I don't mean to terrify people with the image of a meteor striking the planet, but change is hard, and we need to embrace it. We need to think in terms of every decision is a buying decision, because that is, in many ways, the world that we're living in. It was free to run a Google query and figure out where you're going to go to a restaurant on the weekend. Now we ask Perplexity to do that. 20 cents was spent. It was free to go search for a map or something like that. Maybe I asked Claude to plan a trip for me. A few dollars was spent for that. I need to send an important email to my CEO, and I want to make sure I wrote it correctly. I'm going to put that into ChatGPT. A few bucks were spent for that. I'm thinking about something. I've got an idea. Let me ask Claude what it thinks about that. A few more dollars were spent. I think that's an interesting, completely life-changing moment for the world at large, not just us, but the world at large. If we're looking at these valuations of some of these companies, Anthropic, OpenAI, SpaceX, and xAI, they're talking trillions of dollars. Well, how do we get at those numbers? Because every decision has become a buying decision. And the way that we are going to be the masters of this new crazy world that we're living, in other words, to surf this wave that we all have the opportunity to surf. We are on the front row of this transformation. We're going to have to all figure out how to evolve with it and change with it. We are getting that promotion, but we have to accept it. We don't have a choice. And that means building this value engine, building a world that takes FinOps beyond what we think about in terms of the cloud bill and the money that we spend and the costs, to a world where we think about the outcomes and the value.
Well said.
How do we, yeah. So every decision, like I said, is now a buying decision. I love when I look at anything that my company is doing or anything that any of our customers are working on, that we're asking this question, was it worth it? And FinOps, all of us, the practitioners in this room, we get to own what comes next. So, Rick, how do you see us moving forward in this brave new world, right?
I mean, I'm trying to land this ship here. I think we've kind of given you guys a lot of information about what's changing and kind of how to prioritize what we're going to fix next and what the things are that we can focus on to not be that person in the news story that spent $500 million on tokens, if that's even a real thing.
I'm trying to spend.
Yeah. But the things, kind of the key takeaways here is govern the new spend, build, operate, serve. It's the same thing we've always been doing. Prove realized value, so unit economics on every dollar, so making sure that we don't just understand our cloud spend, we understand our AI spend, we understand all of our different SaaS providers and how they're contributing to our business and our bottom line. And then automating at AI speed, because the human decision is going to be the slowest thing that's going to happen in your organization.
Yeah, we need to move from humans in the loop to humans barely in the loop, and guiding that, and that's going to be a little
humans designing the loop.
Humans designing the loop. I like that even better. And we're going to need a system of governance in order for us to move at that speed. That's what we're building together if we're going to get there. So if you have questions about this, if you have questions about how we're building this, how we're thinking about this, what Rick and I have been working on and others, or how we're getting there, we would love those questions. We would love to evolve on this. I would love to see us all come back together a year from now and be really excited together about the promotion that we all got, talking about the hundreds of AI employees that we now have and the amazing things that we created from all of that. I think we can get there together. And I think we get there by focusing on the value. So thank you very much. Thank you for being part of this conversation. Rick, thank you.
Hey everyone, producer Andrew here. Thanks for watching. Check out the rest of our channel for more FinOps content. Like, subscribe, and leave questions and comments for our speakers. We appreciate your support.